Morning. We can pray. Just give me 1 second. Always say I got 1 minute. Give me 10 seconds to say what I got to say. We're going in Philippians chapter 4. It says, rejoice in the Lord always. I say rejoice. And verse 13 says, I can do all things through Christ who strengthened me. This morning, the nugget for today is you can do all things through Christ who strengthened you. Don't mind the noise in the market. It's the price of the fish. And rejoice. The Bible said when they spitefully accuse you, rejoice and be exceedingly glad. For great is your reward in heaven. So persecuted the Father, so they will persecute you. And I want to talk about Daniel. We know the story about Daniel. You know, Daniel was thrown in the lion's den for praying, but Daniel never gave up. And King Nebuchadnezzar threw him in the lion's den and for praying. So I want to say to you all, never give up this morning. No matter what the task is, no matter what the situation is, hold on to God and change in hand, because help and hope is here and it's on the way. Lock your chin on your chest, because I feel something shouting in my soul this morning. Let us pray before come on, let us pray, man. Because you know, sometimes, don't muzzle the ox that trend to go on. Somebody said, what you talking about? Some of y'all in preachers, y'all not talking about like Reverend Warren P. Miller. Bow your heads on lock your head on your chest, let us pray. Oh, gracious Heavenly Father, God, we thank you. How sweet the name of Jesus sound. God, and every believer say, God, you soothe our sorrow and you drive away all our fear. Father God, today we just want to say thank you. Nothing else but to say thank you, God, for what you're doing. Thank you, God, for what you're about to do. God, we thank you, God, for making a way out of no way, God. Lord, we just thank you. We just praise your name, God. We just glorify your name, God. And as we are about to do the business of the people, God, in this house, God, we pray, God, that there'll be peace, there'll be understanding in the name of Jesus. God, we thank you, God. We praise your name. We give you all the honor. We decree and we declare miracles, God. Even as the crowd walking, God, and elutra, God, like never yet before. My God, God, we thank you. Because blessings, hope is here. In Jesus' name, amen. That was taught us to say, children. As we forgive those, and lead us not, but deliver us from all evil. May the peace of God be with you that passes all understanding.
Philip Davis, Chester Cooper, Fred Mitchell, Glennis Hannah Martin, Obadiah Wilstrom, Alfred Sayers, Dr. Michael Darville, Clay Sweeting, Keith Bell, Wayne Monroe, Vaughn Miller, Jobeth Colby Davis, Ginger Moxley, Mario Bolag, Jomo Campbell, Basil McIntosh, Miles LaRoda, Pia Glover Rowe, Lisa Ramming, Zane Lightborn, Dr. Hubert Minnis, Jamal Strawn, John Pinder, Marcus Roll, Leon Lundy, Kirk Cornish, Wade Watson, Leonardo Lightborn, Leah Miller Bryce, Leroy Major, Sylvanius Petty, Mikel Bonnaby, Michael Pintard, James Kwesi Thompson, Aram Lewis, Shannon Dawn Cartwright, Adrian Gibson, Adrian White.
Good morning, honorable members. We will now go down the order of business. Introduction and swearing in of new members. Laying of documents by ministers. The chair recognizes.
Yeah.
The chair recognizes the honorable member for Cat Island, Rumkey, and San Salvador.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I beg leave to lay on the table of the House a copy of the following. A central bank $10 silver-proof coin Golden Duo number 2, Order 2022, and the Bank and Trust Company's appointment of Independent Valuer Lucius Bank Limited Notice 2022.
Order that documents be brought up.
So there. Okay.
Order that the documents do lie on the table. For the laying of documents, the chair recognizes the honourable member for West Grand Bahamas.
Madam Speaker, I beg leave to lay on the table of the House a copy of the following: the Price Control General Amendment Number 4 Regulations 2022.
Order that the document be brought up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Order that the document do lie on the table. For the laying of documents by ministers.
Lay.
Thank you, honourable member. Statements and communication by ministers. The chair recognizes the honourable member for Fox Hill.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and it's good that you're back, see that you're back, and may I take this opportunity to extend condolences to you on the passing of your brother.
Thank you very much, honourable member.
It is my honor this morning to announce, in cooperation with the family of the late Sir Sidney Poitier, that a state-recognized memorial service will be held at St. Francis Xavier's Cathedral in Nassau on Sunday, the 19th of June at 2 p.m. Archbishop Patrick Pindar will celebrate the Mass. Formal invitations will be sent out shortly. There is to be a cultural show in tribute and memorial to the late Bahamian actor, producer, writer, diplomat, and civil rights leader on Saturday, the 18th of June, 2022, at the Atlantis Convention Center beginning at 7 p.m., and a reception will follow. Officers of the state are to attend each of these events, including the cabinet, senators, members of parliament, public officials, in addition to the diplomatic corps and the public. Invitations will be dispatched shortly. The dress on each occasion will be lounge suit, guayaberas, native dress, military uniforms, medals, and decorations. The events will be hosted by the Governor General, Sir Cornelius Smith, ON, GCMG, and Lady Smith, in the presence of the Prime Minister of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, Honorable Philip Davis and Mrs. Davis, with the Poitier family. Both events will be live streamed on social media and broadcast on television. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, honourable member. Order that the document be brought up. Thank you. Order that document do lie on the table. Further statement and communications. The chair recognizes the honourable member for Tall Pines.
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I beg leave to introduce and have read for the first time a copy of the Midwives and Nurses Bill 2022. And it's a communication. I'm so pleased that finally this particular bill is now being laid in this place. It's a combination of hard work that supersedes many various administrations and will take the practice of nursing and midwifery to the next level in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. The bill has been circulated extensively to the various different agencies. And this particular bill is a bill for an act to expand the practice of nursing and midwifery, to continue the Nursing Council of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, to provide for the training and regulation and registration and licensing of registered nurses, midwives, and advanced practice nurses, to provide for the training, regulation, enrollment, and licensing of licensed practical nurses, to provide for the regulation and licensing of nurses interns, to provide for the regulations of unlicensed assistive personnel, and to provide for the regulations and registration of the licensing of nursing agencies. And finally, Madam Speaker, to repeal the Nurses and Midwives Act 1971. I'm excited about this, and I'm glad to be the minister who have the opportunity to lay this piece of legislation, and look forward for the support of my colleagues in this chamber and in the other place. This particular bill, once enacted, would catapult the practice of nursing from where we are today into the 21st century. My colleagues are excited about where we're heading with this. And finally, we are at the point where we can do more for our nurses and give opportunities for further postgraduate training and the advancement of the career within the Commonwealth of the Bahamas and by extension to the rest of the world. Madam Speaker, it is a privilege for me as Minister of Health and Wellness to salute the many hard-working healthcare professionals in New Providence, Grand Bahama, and Abaco that provide emergency medical services for Bahamians, residents, and guests alike. Madam Speaker, our emergency medical technicians, paramedics, dispatchers, first-hand responders, and emergency nurses play a critical role in the delivery of healthcare services in our country. Theirs is a profession that is often not Theirs is a profession that is often taken for granted. But if the truth be told, our healthcare ecosystem would collapse without this critical support. These are the people on the other end of a 911 call who handle in excess of 25,700 life-saving calls per year. Madam Speaker, any medical emergencies, these are the people we meet firsthand, and these are the individuals who are responsible for the care of our loved ones who have to utilize this service in some of the most challenging circumstances. They are the emergency room on wheels, and these highly trained experts use their specialized vehicles to save lives and give everyone in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas in their care a chance for better medical outcomes while en route to hospital. Madam Speaker, it is my understanding that in 2010, the country had only 34 registered emergency medical technicians, and since that date, the number has grown to almost 140 EMT specialists across the country, but there is a demand for more, and we encourage Bahamians throughout our archipelago to seek careers in this highly trained medical arena. I ensure that we will work diligently with them to ensure that our family islands have top priority. And we are calling to Bahamians everywhere, our young people, to be able to assist us in fulfilling these particular skills. It is exciting news for all of us. And during the upcoming budget debate, I will speak more about the government's plan on why we should use our resources more strategically to purchase ambulances, improve medical infrastructure, and train additional medical personnel for deployment across our archipelago. Training is paramount, and going forward, more emphasis must be placed on this area, along with providing the Department of the Ministry of Health with the additional resources that is necessary to accomplish this important mandate. It is certainly a new day in my ministry, and once again, I would like to take this opportunity to thank the EMT team, led by Dr. Alvry Hanna, for their commitment and hard work, sometimes in some of the most challenging circumstances. Finally, on behalf of a family friend, I would like to personally thank the 2 EMT professionals who assisted me a few days ago in Grand Bahama in the transport of their loved one to the Rand Memorial Hospital. And thanks to their quick response, and professional care, the patient is in hospital doing very well. Now, Madam Speaker, on behalf of the Honorable Philip Brave Davis, it gives me great pleasure to lay the proclamation in this honorable chamber. Whereas emergency medical services is vital and essential public service in the Bahamas, and whereas the members of the emergency medical service team provide life-saving care as first responders to those in need for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and whereas access to quality emergency medical care drastically improved the survival and recovery rate of those who experience sudden illness or injury, and whereas emergency medical services fill a critical gap by providing valuable pre-hospital care on the front line, including preventative medicine and follow-up care, and whereas the emergency medical service system consists of emergency medical technicians, paramedics, emergency medical dispatchers, firefighters, educators, administrators, emergency nurses, emergency physicians, volunteer emergency medical responders, and others out of hospital who provide care for our loved ones. And whereas the members of the emergency medical service team, whether career or volunteer, engage in thousands of hours of specialized training and education to enhance life-saving skills. And whereas it is appropriate to recognize the value of the accomplishment of emergency medical service providers designated Emergency Medical Services Week. Now, therefore, on behalf of the Right Honorable Philip Brave Davis, I, Dr. Michael Darville, Minister of Health of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, do hereby proclaim the week of May the 15th to the 21st, 2022 as the National Emergency Medical Services Week. Thank you, and may God continue to bless all of our healthcare professionals. Yeah. Yes. They're hiding in the corner. On behalf of our Prime Minister, myself, please stand. We would like to salute you for the great work that you're doing in the country. Thank you so much. The team led by Dr. Aldri Hanna, they're doing an excellent job. And I said before, I was in Grand Bahama and had to utilize the service with the transport of a loved one. The service has just evolved into something extremely special. And I want to thank my colleagues because very soon we would have the ability, the financial means to extend the service throughout the Family Islands, something that I'm looking forward to and something that we're working very diligently to address. Madam Speaker, if I may, over the last month, we have been noticing the increase in COVID-19 cases, and we are about to do a press release as it relates to the numbers. But there's a clarification that I would like to make, because in one of the dailies, they published an article that sort of alluded that the incidence of individuals dying from COVID has increased. But I want to clarify it, because if they were to go back at our dashboard, they would realize that there were some cases on the dashboard that were unclear. And it is our responsibility from the Ministry of Health to clarify and to remove those cases where the cause of death is uncertain and to classify them as COVID deaths or otherwise. That has happened, and so there was an increase in death count, but that increase was associated with cases that fell into the category of unclassified cause of death. We will be doing a press release to clarify that. It's nothing new. These are not new cases. These were mainly cases that were on our dashboard that needed to be clarified. And so we will be releasing a statement very shortly to clarify that. But I want to assure the Bahamian people that even though we're seeing an increase in the number of cases, the hospitalizations are low and the members in the ICU are, as of yesterday, is 0. And that's the Princess Margaret Hospital, the Sandals Rehabilitation Hospital, the Rand Memorial Hospital, and Doctors Hospital. Yesterday, we had 7 cases in hospital, none were in ICU, and we would definitely be releasing a statement that would clarify those who came off the dashboard that are now classified as COVID deaths did not happen in the last month. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Order that the document be brought up. Order that the document do lie on the table. Further statement and communications? Thank you, Honorable Member. Communications by the clerk. Messages from the Governor General. Messages from the Senate. Motion for leave of absence, leave to resign, seat, and new writs. Presentations of petitions. Presentations of reports of committees. Adoption of reports of committees. First reading of bills. The chair recognizes the Honorable Member for Tall Pines.
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker. I beg leave to introduce and read for the first time a copy of the following. A bill for an act to expand the practice of nursing and midwifery, to continue the Nursing Council of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, to provide for the training, regulation, registration, and licensing of registered nurses, midwives, and advanced practice nurses, to provide for the training, regulation, enrollment, and licensing of licensed practical nurses, to provide for the regulation of nursing interns, to provide for the regulations of unlicensed assistive personnel, to provide for the regulation, registration, and licensing of nursing agency, and finally to repeal the Nurses and Midwives Act 1971 and for connective purposes.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Order that the document be brought up.
Sorry.
Thank you. It has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read for the first time and tabled. Nurses and Midwives Bill 2022. All those in favor shall remain seated. Those opposed will stand. Order that the bill be read a first time and tabled.
A bill for an act to expand the practice of nursing and midwifery, to continue the Nursing Council of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, to provide for the training, regulation, registration, and licensing of registered nurses, midwives, and advanced practice nurses, to provide for the training, regulation, enrollment, and licensing of licensed practical nurses, to provide for the regulation of nurses interns, to provide for the regulation of unlicensed assistive personnel, to provide for the regulation, registration, and licensing of nursing agencies, to repeal the Nurses and Midwife Act 1971 and for connected purposes.
Thank you. For the first reading?
For the first reading.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Second reading and committal of bills? The chair recognizes the Honorable Member for Centerville.
Good morning, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise today with the strength loaned to me by the Almighty God to represent the great people of Centerville. They are the citizens who have given me the opportunity to serve in this place. For this, I am not only grateful, but truly humbled. These past months I have spent as their representative have shown me just what an awesome responsibility it is they have entrusted to me. All of us who are here, no matter which side of the aisle we fall on politically, have been given this same responsibility by our citizens. The difference, Madam Speaker, is found in how seriously we take this responsibility. Madam Speaker, in the constituency of Centerville, since I last spoke in this place, myself and my team have had the awesome task of hosting our Easter Family Fun Day on St. George's Park, where we had the pleasure of distributing over 600 Easter baskets. This was a pricey event, Madam Speaker, but to see the smiles on the faces of those young children was indeed priceless. We also held our Harvest of Love on the Centerville basketball court, where the senior citizens from all 12 polling divisions were able to come and collect healthy, hearty bags of fresh produce. And I would like to thank BAMSI and our other private sponsors who made that event possible. We also hosted our job readiness event at the Stephen Dillard School with the assistance of the Zonta Club of Nassau and the Bahamas Society for Human Resource Management, who helped to get our constituents ready to take on any interview and job fair to come their way. Madam Speaker, we just recently also had the pleasure to cater lunch for approximately 400 mothers in Centerville on Mother's Day. And this was indeed a lovely event, for our mothers are truly a treasure to be cherished. On Monday past, we had our most recent branch meeting at Columbus Primary, which was well attended despite the inclement weather. And Madam Speaker, I would like to take this opportunity to thank my brother, member for Mount Moriah, who appeared as our guest speaker. His presentation was excellent and in fact timely. He spoke about the framework for the distribution of contracts, Madam Speaker, and his presentation was paid extreme attention to, and they appreciated his presence. Madam Speaker, we now stand in the future of which our forefathers and mothers spoke and fought for. Because they introduced free education to the majority, we now have countless career choices. Because they thought we should be an independent nation, we now approach our 49th year of independence. Because they thought that every citizen, whether landowner or not, should be able to cast their vote. Now every Bahamian of legal age has a say in who leads us. This past week, I attended the Youth in Parliament exercise, and I wondered if we, who are now in positions of power, recognize that those young people will have to live with the decisions we make today. With that in mind, we all have to consider exactly what it is that we are leaving to those who follow us. We have had the great fortune of following in the footsteps of great pioneers who have blazed trails when there were none, all for the benefit of the Bahamian people. It is my hope, Madam Speaker, that the youth of today will be able to say and feel the same way about this generation of Bahamians. I wish to commend all the young people that participated in the Youth in Parliament exercise. And of course, Madam Speaker, with fear of sounding biased, I wish to make special mention of Travania Wiley, our youth representative for Centerville, who ably represented, Madam Speaker, and showed us that our future is indeed in safe and secure hands. Madam Speaker, the Progressive Liberal Party has a saying, anytime someone shouts PLP, the resounding response is all the way. This is not by happenstance, but by design. It is based on Deuteronomy chapter 8, verse 2, found in the Bible, pull it out, which states, "And thou shalt remember all the way which the Lord thy God leads us." These 40 years in the wilderness, to humble thee and to prove thee, to know what was in thine heart, whether thou wouldst keep his commandments or not. Madam Speaker,
Missy Call.
Madam Speaker, the people of Grand Bahama have been in something of a wilderness experience with many years of economic downturn. But it would seem that the promised land is in sight for Grand Bahama. I take this opportunity to congratulate the honorable member for Cat Island, Rumkey, and San Salvador, along with his colleagues, the member for Exumas and Pine Ridge, on the incredible strides being made to revive the economy of Grand Bahama. This past week, there was not one, but two major announcements made. Ground was broken on the Carnival Cruise Port, an initiative foreshadowed in 2002 by the member for West Grand Bahama, and followed up in 2017 May by the Right Honorable Perry G. Christie. Madam Speaker, I think it was the Right Honorable Hubert Ingram who once said that some sow and others reap. But this is not the case here. Not this time. This deal was announced by a PLP administration and ground broken by a PLP administration. Also announced was the sale of the Grand Lucayan Hotel, another step in the right direction for Grand Bahama's economic resurgence, and the righting of what is, in my opinion, one of the great wrongs by the former administration. Madam Speaker, I also wish to congratulate the member for Carmichael and the Minister of Immigration and Labor. He, along with his staff and the Director of Labor, did an excellent job in hosting a job fair in our constituency of Centerville as part of their Labor on the Blocks initiative. This event was oversubscribed and showed the great need for permanent and gainful employment in our country. It demonstrates the arduous work that lays before us to ensure that through our policies and initiatives, the Bahamian people will be able to lift themselves up and better their circumstances. I would also like to mention the commendable efforts by the member for Elizabeth and the Minister of Housing and Transport. She has announced another housing initiative, Renaissance at Carmichael, where some 200 homes and condos will be constructed. In my constituency, I am witness to the effect that inadequate housing has on a family. In some instances, multiple families share the same house or dwelling space because it is simply all they can afford. Ensuring that affordable housing options are available to Bahamians is something that the Progressive Liberal Party is known for and should be proud of. It is widely agreed that the Bahamas is an expensive real estate market. This is a double-edged sword. It makes our country a desirable destination and a home for the wealthy. But it also means that those who we most need to serve can ill afford their own homes without assistance. I am happy that this administration, led by the Honorable Prime Minister and member for Cat Island, Rumkey, and San Salvador, sees the importance of assisting Bahamians in obtaining a home. Madam Speaker, for those on the side opposite and those listening to me who may be surprised by what this government has achieved in less than a year, I would remind them that this is a progressive Liberal Party administration. We are not about trickle-down economics or effect. The PLP is about granting access to the majority. Access is what built the middle class, which in turn developed our country. Access is what will get our country back on track economically. Access, Madam Speaker, is what will help Bahamians like those in Centerville change the trajectory of their lives and families. It is my belief that providing greater economic access for more Bahamians and all that entails, whether providing a marketable education, scholarships, private-public partnerships, and/or greater Bahamian participation and employment in foreign direct investment projects, etc., will give this administration exactly what it needs to service the masses of this country. Madam Speaker, I now turn my attention to what is before us. The amendment to the Digital Assets and Registered Exchange Bill 2022, otherwise known as the DARE Act. This regulates that the issuance and sale of digital assets, crypto assets, and tokens. It also provides a legal framework for businesses in this field. The act is administered by the Securities Commission of the Bahamas, following the adoption of the May 2017 CFATF Mutual Evaluation Report of the Bahamas. The Bahamas underwent its first enhanced follow-up report and re-rating exercise in December 2018. The report stated, this follow-up report analyzes the Bahamas' progress in addressing certain technical compliance deficiencies which were identified in the Bahamas MER. Re-ratings are given where sufficient progress has been made. The Bahamas is currently rated partially compliant for recommendation 15, otherwise known as R15, with respect to several technical deficiencies, including the Securities Commission of the Bahamas not having specific provisions for licensees and registrants to assess money laundering and terrorism financing, risk of new business practices, including new delivery mechanisms, or the use of new or developing technologies for both new and pre-existing products. Madam Speaker also noted were deficiencies linked to the Commission's obligation to monitor any person carrying out virtual asset service providership activities without the requisite license or registration and apply appropriate sanctions to them. Secondly, the obligation to ensure that the virtual asset service providers are subject to adequate regulation and risk-based supervision or monitoring by a competent authority, including systems for ensuring compliance with national AML CFT requirements, and ensuring supervisors have adequate powers to supervise or monitor and ensure compliance by VASPs with requirements to combat money laundering, including the authority to conduct inspections, and the ability to compel the production of information, evidence under oath, and impose a range of disciplinary and financial sanctions, including the power to withdraw, restrict, or suspend the VASP's license or registration where applicable. Clause 3 of the bill seeks to amend Section 39 of the Act to introduce a new subsection 3 to provide for the Commission to implement systems to identify any person who is not registered under the Act and who is carrying on or involved in or purporting to carry on or be involved in digital asset business. Clause 4 of the bill provides for the insertion of new sections 40A and 40B to give the Commission the authority to compel the production of documentation, information, and evidence under oath from any person, and also to set out the circumstances under which the Commission can commence contempt proceedings against anyone summoned pursuant to Section 40A. Clause 5 of the bill provides for the insertion of new sections 42A and 42B into the Principal Act. Clause 42A seeks to extend the Commission's enforcement and cooperative authority. Clause 42A seeks to provide for a penalty of up to $100,000 for any person failing to comply with a directive of the Commission made under Section 42A. Clause 42B also seeks to establish a due process framework for the implementation of the aforesaid penalty. Madam Speaker, Clause 6 of this bill seeks to provide for the insertion of a new section 46A into the Principal Act to provide for the Commission to direct any person having on deposit or control of any funds, securities, or other property of the person named in order to hold them or not allow them to be withdrawn. These changes that we seek will strengthen the existing legislations and place that the Bahamas holds and put us in a better position to secure our second largest economic contributor and to remain in compliance with international agencies, treaties, and best practices. Madam Speaker, I wish to thank Dr. Cassandra Nordich and our hardworking team at the Office of the Attorney General for their tireless efforts that often go unnoticed from time to time. I also wish to thank you and my colleagues for your indulgence. This is another piece of legislation aimed at cleaning up and updating laws which already exist, something we must do from time to time. We all love this great country, and hopefully, we all wish to do well in representing those who send us here. They are, Madam Speaker, depending on us to lift them up, to show them the way. Madam Speaker, if I may be permitted, it was the first Prime Minister of this country, the Right Honorable Sir Lyndon Pinling, who said on his last occasion in addressing this place, leaders, we must not forget to not make themselves. They are made instead by the people they lead, by the people who believe in them, and by the people who are prepared to follow them. Not out of fear, or because it may be the in thing to do, or because of some hypnotic spell, but because deep down there is a faith that moves them to lift us up to a height above their own, in the hope that from the lofty perch to which they have raised us, we can see that which they cannot, and that having seen, we then, as their leaders, can point the way forward into the tomorrow that awaits us all. Colleagues, our mandate is great, but our resolve must be even greater. The people of the Bahamas have great need. Not the few, but the masses. They need this progressive liberal party to be the party it was created to be. To toe the line set before us toward upliftment, freedom, accountability, and the advancement of the common good. With these words, Madam Speaker, I so move.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Is there a seconder? The chair recognizes the Honorable Member for South and Central Andros.
Madam Speaker, I rise to second the bill for an act to amend the DARE Act or the Digital Assets and Registered Exchanges Act 2022. But before I go on, I must give a special shout out and recognition to Ms. Scottisha King, who so elegantly represented the great constituency of Mangrove Key, Central, and South Andros during the junior parliamentary speech on Friday. Madam Speaker, Mangrove Key was where I spent last weekend, enjoying the homecoming regatta, hosted by Mr. Roston Moxie and his team. And what an awesome job they did. I say thank you to them. Madam Speaker, but what impressed me the most about the weekend were two young skippers who hailed from Exuma, who placed second and third in two of the races at a young age of 15 and 16. I know the honorable member for Exuma and the Ragged Islands must be proud, as I was proud that they sparked interest in some of the youths down there in Mangrove Key for sailing. Now, as I move on into today's discussion, Madam Speaker, the additional amendment allows for resilient monitoring and sanctions for those who would operate in the digital asset business without the proper registration. The Act first came into force on the 14th of December, 2020, to regulate the issuance, sale, and trade of digital assets in and from within the Bahamas. The Act applies to any person who participates in the formation, promotion, maintenance, organization, sale, and or redemption of an initial token offering as organizer, issuer, founder, purchaser, or investor. The Act also applies to any legal entity incorporated, registered, or established in the Bahamas as a company, partnership, or exempted limited partnership carrying on a digital asset business, irrespective of physical location from which the activity is carried out. For the purpose of this Act, digital assets are any digital representation of value distributed through a DLT or a distributed ledger technology platform, where value is embedded or in which there is a contractual right of use, including a contractual token. Number two, digital asset businesses include the businesses of a digital token exchange, providing services related to a digital token exchange, operating as a payment service provider, utilizing digital assets, operating as a digital asset service provider, or participating in and providing financial services related to an issuer's offer or sale of a digital asset and any other activity prescribed by regulation. And number three, an initial token offering is an offer by an issuer for sale to the public of a digital token in exchange for fiat currency or another digital assets. Madam Speaker, the Securities Commission of the Bahamas regulates and supervises the issuance of digital assets, digital asset businesses, and their activities in the Bahamas, and is required to maintain a register of digital asset businesses and initial token offerings. This act creates specific opportunities for Bahamian entrepreneurial financial technology firms to enjoy the credibility of being licensed and functioning under a comprehensive regulatory regime and participate in the fintech industry. The emergence of digital asset market presents an opportunity for the establishment of new asset class that attracts mainstream investors. Madam Speaker, the global consensus record of information and transaction that is enabled through the blockchain technology enables the much needed transparency in finance. At the beginning of the 2020s, investors in the digital asset market ranged from retail to institutional, as well as exchanges, brokers, dealers, investment banks, custody providers, IT firms, and other players in the ecosystem. However, Madam Speaker, as technology evolves, so must our oversight and management of it. The Bahamas is a country of law. We were founded by our Constitution, and subsequent laws have been put into place to guide our country's policies and processes. No one, Madam Speaker, is above the law. Over and over, we have heard stories of persons skirting the laws of this land, either because the proper laws were not put in place or the current laws were not strong enough. It is our duty, Madam Speaker, to shore up any and all existing laws that are vulnerable to loopholes or weaknesses in the course of doing business. The Bahamas has long enjoyed a reputation for strong financial laws and regulations. Madam Speaker, the growth of digital assets has been exponential since its inception. However, there have been several factors which have contributed to the evolution and de-evolution of the market in digital assets. First and foremost, among those factors is the persistent legal uncertainty that afflicts the market for digital assets. Regulators around the world have struggled with a coherent approach to regulating digital assets. We have been fortunate to have launched the first central bank digital currency, the sand dollar, in October 2020. Because it is issued by the central bank, the sand dollar has the same financial protections as the country's tangible legal tender. However, Madam Speaker, not all digital assets have the same built-in protections, making them volatile, high risk, and unsuitable for every potential investor. The DARE Act, Madam Speaker, in its intention, seeks to the proportionate and pragmatic approach to the regulation of digital asset businesses. Globally, there is a rapidly evolving digital asset landscape, and the Bahamas must remain at the forefront of regulated jurisdictions in order to prevent attempts at money laundering, fraud, and illicit financing. Part of the policy initiatives of the white paper presented by this New Day government includes a quote which goes, "Where necessary, to clarify and expand the scope of this current legislative framework." And this quote is why we are here today, Madam Speaker. It is not enough to encourage innovation in fintech without having sufficient regulations in place. The regulatory landscape is still highly contentious, with companies often left to their own devices when deciding on best practices. This brings forth issues of transparency and security, not only with how these entities are using digital assets, but with protection from malicious online actors and hackers who would seek to defraud or circumvent laws and regulations. Madam Speaker, with the size of the digital crypto assets market reaching $3 million by the end of 2021, businesses who were able to prove that they have superior protection of digital assets and the personal data of their users are ahead of the curve. The digital asset market is shifting from spot trading and physical ownership to the adoption of traditional financial products, such as digital asset securities, futures, options, and exchange-traded funds and products. The Securities Commission of the Bahamas will take the lead and collaborate as necessary with the Central Bank of the Bahamas and other relevant stakeholders on all regulatory matters relating to digital assets and digital asset businesses. Madam Speaker, with the amendments on this bill, we want to extend the authority of the Securities Commission in enforcement and penalties. For example, the amended bill allows for the Securities Commission to discharge penalties of up to $100,000 to anyone who does not comply with the directions from the Commission. Businesses will find that the true cost of non-compliance will not only be financial, but also business disruption and reputational risk. Therefore, Madam Speaker, this amendment ensures that the regulations are in place to protect investors and ensure efficient and transparent processes. Another amendment addresses those considered uncooperative witnesses. The bill inserts a section to specify what happens if the Commission requests information and an individual or entity refuses to attend a hearing, give evidence, or produce certain documentation. On refusal, the Commission may choose to hold such person or entity in contempt. Madam Speaker, now more than ever, our laws and these amendments are set to do must make way for those who refuse to provide evidence or documentation when called for. Similar to this amendment, the Commission will also be given the power to compel persons to attend a hearing so as to produce documentation relevant to an investigation or answer any questions that provide clarification concerning processes and decisions in that business. We cannot, Madam Speaker, have any more scenarios where non-compliance occurs without the appropriate repercussions. The amendments to this bill not only instruct penalties of up to $100,000, but also offer sanctions like freeze orders, especially when it is in the public's best interest. Sanctions, as such, will be enforced when there is a need to assist other jurisdictions in the inquiry or investigation of a digital asset business. Madam Speaker, our policy objectives remain, which is to improve the attractiveness of the Bahamas as a well-regulated jurisdiction where well-run digital asset businesses of any size can operate, grow, and prosper. Also, to encourage innovation in the fintech space and identify emerging technologies that would help to maintain our competitive advantage. Also, to build capacity and expand the resources of the Securities Commission in order to support and enhance its role as the preeminent digital asset regulator. Also, Madam Speaker, it enables the Securities Commission to become a global center of excellence in the reasonable, risk-adjusted regulation of digital asset businesses. As we wish to maintain the reputation of the Bahamas, it is imperative that we continuously review our laws and policies in maintaining financial compliance. Optimal regulation will mitigate the risk associated with fraud, digital security, economic stability, and consumer protection. Equally important, Madam Speaker, is the need for banks and other regulated firms and the professions in the Bahamas to recognize the challenges of dealing with the digital businesses and, accordingly, to expand their capabilities to support a burgeoning digital asset sector. As such, a new door will open up for jobs, education, and skills in the digital asset arena. This New Day government will expand the range of sector-specific academic, professional, and technical education opportunities available to enable Bahamians to secure positions in the industry. Further planning means that we will establish the Digital Adversary Panel to include leading digital asset experts to keep digital asset and related digital developments, emerging trends, and associated risks constantly under review. This panel, Madam Speaker, will be charged with keeping the government, the Digital Asset Policy Committee, and the appropriate regulators regularly updated, and also with recommending appropriate changes to digital policies and innovatives to this act. Granting access to digital assets for Bahamians in Bahamian dollars and encouraging greater use of sand dollars through the central bank is another priority for the Davis administration. Madam Speaker, the government will consider the feasibility of introducing incentives for digital asset businesses that prioritize more efficient digital assets over those that are less energy efficient. Overall, Madam Speaker, policy making, which is sensible and practical, is always dependent on the consideration for all factors, including the impact on other policies, legal requirements, and evidence risk adjustments. This New Day government, Madam Speaker, is confident in its visionary white paper on digital asset policy. The framework will expand our economic diversity and provide additional job opportunities for our people and my constituents. A prosperous Bahamas and a progressive Andros is the goal. And because of this, I stand representing the great people of Mangrove Key, Central, and South Andros, and I am satisfied to second the bill and its amendments laid before this honorable House. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Member. It has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read a second time and committed. Digital Assets and Registered Exchanges Amendment Bill 2022. As many, the chair recognizes the Honorable Member for Marco City, a bishop, an apostle, and now a rev.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I join my colleagues in extending condolences to you, Madam Speaker,
Thank you very much.
and to also extend condolences to so many Bahamian families who are challenged with untold sorrow because of the passing of their loved ones during this period. But we are people of faith and know that God has a way of healing the broken heart and filling the void left by the loss of someone so dear in our lives. Madam Speaker, it's an honor to have this opportunity to join my colleagues in supporting the amendment to the Digital Asset and Registered Exchanges Bill of 2022. But first, Madam Speaker, I'd like to especially say good morning to all of the residents of Marco City and to continue to express my gratitude for this rare opportunity to lend my voice to your voice and to be your representative through every street corner in Marco City and here in this parliament on your behalf, and to say how committed our team in Marco City is and those persons who partner with us from within the Bahamas and overseas, how committed we are to lessening your burdens and helping you to meet your needs, and to constantly remind ourselves that we are facilitators, facilitating your dreams and aspirations. And so once again, thank you. We'd like to recognize Corday Strawn, the Youth Parliament representative from Marco City. I sat in the gallery and listened to him and other incredible young people as they raised critical issues. And I was extremely proud. He has an amazing story. And to say to Corday, we're proud of you. And of course, his school is also in Marco City, Sunline. He's a stinger. And to say we're proud of you and all of the young people who did an amazing job. I'd also like to once again express Happy Mother's Day and in advance, Happy Father's Day to all of the mothers and fathers of Marco City, and to say how much we love you and appreciate you. Madam Speaker, I listened in the last sitting of Parliament to the communications that were given. I've had the occasion to say to the Prime Minister and to the Deputy Prime Minister, they had a good week last week. It is interesting, they sought to bring it over into this week as well. I thought that there was sufficient public relations that they received. And we are hopeful in Grand Bahama that the hotel deal would be concluded. And we say hopeful because we note that the critical documents have not yet been signed. The due diligence has not yet been conducted or completed. The required initial payments have not yet been transferred. And the people of Grand Bahama have been here before. And so, again, we are hopeful. We will never pull against any potential opportunity to transform the condition of our people for the better. But we caution against any scenario that reveals overselling and under-delivering. And so it is our hope that the tremendous enthusiasm with which the deal has been presented will be followed through with the granular work to ensure better for our people. We are on record as saying that the decoupling of the arrangement so that the hotel could be sold separate from the harbor deal is one that we support. And to make the point that if there is a credible buyer, we will support that as well, as long as the details make sense. We also, Madam Speaker, listened quite attentively to the Prime Minister laying the Food Task Force report on the table of this House of Assembly. We have been, we believe, very clear in saying earlier that it is most unfortunate that the government has chosen to drip feed the public with salacious details surrounding a wide range of issues, inclusive of the Food Task Force. It is always a painful experience to listen to private organizations that have historically made contributions in the Bahamas and private individuals, reputation taking a beating. And the perpetrators are no less than policymakers who are the caretakers of our country and by extension, our citizens. It is possible to be responsible and to hold former governments responsible for all decisions made or oversights that they may have permitted to slip through, it is possible to hold individual organizations that are the beneficiary of resources from the Bahamian people, to hold them accountable without savaging the reputation of persons who are not in this place to defend themselves. And so as I listened to the report and to the hyperbole, to the use of terms that suggest things that were not in the very report referred to this public by the Prime Minister. The chorus of the presentation was read the report. But the report didn't say that $10 million vanished. It said at the time of the report, certain details were unavailable. The reality is, if any citizen, public servant, NGO, or anyone associated with them engage in mis- or malfeasance, anything illegal or unethical, any government is duty-bound to clearly investigate and to take the relevant action required to hold them into account. Under my leadership, we support that. What we do not support is the presentation of incomplete information, leading the discussion with a conclusion that we have not yet arrived at. And that is essentially what the member for Cat Island, Rum Key, and San Salvador did. Gave the conclusion, not merely just innuendos, but made concrete statements about persons who sought to use the public purse to enrich themselves without putting on the public record the evidence thereof. What is interesting is that the audited report by a private company, by the way, that is also one of hundreds possibly of companies who we do not know how they arrived at receiving the contract. That aside, for the moment, there is an auditor general who can also, and we understand, will conduct a report. It's interesting that the Prime Minister and his team did not seek to present the independent audited report, the Auditor General's report, so that we could have a more fulsome understanding of the food program. All of us would like to know the complete details, and all of us want to make sure that no resources of the Bahamian people have been misused in any respect. But the Prime Minister has chosen not to travel that road. It is a much easier road ahead of a budget that will no doubt be challenging for this administration to muddy the water by making incredible, as he put it, startling revelations. Most unfortunate, a poisoning of the well. And so we then ask that we do the decent thing, conduct the requisite investigations, and then use the legal levers or powers that you have in order to make the required decisions to correct any breaches or irregularities in the system and to hold anyone accountable who needs to be. What is interesting is the incredible ability of the New Day government to criticize the former and former administrations for course of action that they themselves are unprepared to demonstrate or to lead by example today. I pointed out one in the last, in 2 sittings ago, when I indicated our support for any program that does 2 things. One, sells land, which is an important step for government to do if that's a standalone proposition. And then secondly, to sell housing packages. Both are important. Selling land, because many persons can build their own homes, and selling packages. What I did say at that time, and we're still waiting, is that we believe the minister who is presently developing a Pinecrest subdivision should also lay on the table of the House of Assembly the topography report, the hydrology report, evidence that subdivisions and town planning act that we complied with those acts to show that there was an environmental impact assessment. It only makes sense that if one is critical of previous projects that apparently did not have these items in place, how can one then proceed without saying to the public, listen, this is how you lead. We are going to put on the table these items to show there'll be no flooding, to show that there is no risk of deforestation because of the clearing of the land, to show that the yards across the street are not going to be flooded. We've taken these things into consideration. It's only the right thing to do. And when somebody raises a question about system of construction, that the Minister of Works, that laying some document to say the Minister of Works and his team of inspectors, they sign off on this system. So this system can not only be used here in Pinecrest, it can be used anywhere else. We stand by it. And we support that. Just lay the evidence, because that then shows this is an improvement in governance over what them other folks did recently. And then, of course, the big one. Madam Speaker, as I shortly turn my attention to the Digital Assets and Registered Exchange Amendment Bill 2022, the big one. The discussion of the food program and the work of other government corporations that this administration has promised to painstakingly open up for the public to see what happened in the last 4.5 years. The government talks about the absence of an explanation or evidence of how funds were spent across multiple departments and ministries. The best way to reveal is to identify those companies that were tasked with carrying out the various services on behalf of the Bahamian people, paid for by your hard-earned tax dollars. Yet this same government that signed the Procurement Act, since September of coming to power, has refused to reveal to the Bahamian people what contracts it has entered into, with whom, for what amounts, for what duration. Madam Speaker, we are all men and women with feet of clay. So it is expected that we have some challenges in our individual lives. We should not use it as an excuse, but for an opportunity to petition God to help us to overcome those challenges. But when one continually, I think in scripture they call it licentiousness, taking license to do something over and over and over because you are aware that grace is available. This administration is licentious. And so the lasciviousness is something else. That's about a moral failing. That's something else. And so this government, no less led by the member for Cat Island, Rumkey, and San Salvador, stood on his feet and looked across and said, I have no intention to comply with the Procurement Act. It's the senior member of the bar. Aided and abetted by Minister Halkidas and, of course, the chief financial officer of the government. All three have indicated they have no intention on complying with the Procurement Act, because at the end of the day, they're going to amend it. Intention to amend is a good thing. However, the government does not reserve the right to not comply with the law because it has intention to change it. And so we ask, what is being hidden by not revealing the hundreds of contracts for the hundreds of millions of dollars that have been allocated to the contractors over the course of the last 9 months? Why have we not revealed who we gave contracts to in September, October, November, December, January, February, March, April, May? Madam Speaker, it is an egregious act, and it is a revelation of a failure to live by the very standards that this administration is holding the previous administration to. We stand ready to face whatever missteps have been taken by anyone, and we stand with the government to make sure that we are on the right side of those issues. What we will not stand for is for the government to apply the standard unevenly. What is good for one administration is good for the other. And the New Day government should follow the law. Too many talented men and women are in this New Day government who want a new Bahamas. We just heard two of them who represents a new generation who wish to go in a different direction, but are now saddled with this blatant contradiction around their neck with a refusal to follow one of the most basic laws that speak to how our monies are being allocated and for what reason and to whom. Madam Speaker, for the few moments that I have remaining, let me refer to the Digital Assets and Registered Exchanges Amendment Bill. The member for East Grand Bahama and all of my colleagues will no doubt elaborate more. I wish to remind the House and the public that in November 2020, the Free National Movement made history in our country by introducing legislation that opened the door for a completely new industry, the digital asset, or crypto, as it is called, industry. The landmark Digital Asset Registered Exchanges Act of 2020, popularly referred to as the DARES Act, provides a legal framework to regulate the issuance and sale of digital assets or crypto assets, including digital tokens. By providing the requisite legal certainty, including providing a legal definition for digital assets and stipulating licensing and registration requirements, the extensively benchmarked Act laid the framework for the establishment of an industry and for ensuring investment, entrepreneurial, and employment opportunities within a well-regulated environment. The Act, Madam Speaker, meets the compliance objectives of international standard-setting organizations like the FATF for anti-money laundering and counter-terrorism financing measures in particular, as well as the relevant principles of the Organization of Securities Commission. It incorporated, Madam Speaker, best practices from Bermuda, Gibraltar, Hong Kong, Ireland, Luxembourg, Malta, Singapore, Switzerland, and the United States, among other jurisdictions. And it laid the groundwork for and introduces sound investment protection standards. Madam Speaker, this is an important step in the right direction. One of the challenges we have, Madam Speaker, as we go into this budget cycle, is that the New Day government, along with the opposition, is really called upon in this budget that is coming up to address some fundamental issues that we are facing. How are we going to reduce the economic leakage? That is, all this money we're earning from tourism that we will now earn from the new tech businesses that will spring up in the Bahamas, those that are in the digital asset space. How are we going to prevent those funds from flowing out of the country to import almost everything that we consume in this country? We are importing. And so the budget has to speak to how are we going to reduce the economic leakages? How are we going to manage our debt so that we do not continue to pay these prohibitive rates that is draining the lifeline out of our country? How are we going to constrain spending while fulfilling commitments made? But more importantly, how are we going to make the requisite structural adjustments to our economy that is not serving us well? We are growing at a sluggish, at a slow rate that is not allowing us to absorb existing unemployment, nor prepare for more young people who will graduate from school, return home. So, Madam Speaker, the work that we do in this amendment and the bill that preceded it gives us an opportunity to create yet another pillar on which this economy stands. And several members opposite over the last few months have talked about the value, as we did, of the blue economy and the orange economy, finding new ways in order to exploit the resources that we have available that are underutilized. And so we have an opportunity if we are serious to make some structural adjustments in the Bahamas. And so, Madam Speaker, please bring the white paper. While doing so, let's bring the one on what the new tax system is going to be in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, because that one is extremely important. The burden of this regressive VAT tax is an albatross around all of our necks. So while the Act provides legal definitions and provides registration and other requirements for digital token exchanges, distributed ledger technology such as blockchain, DLT platforms, token offerings, utility tokens, and smart contracts and other things, the Act does not, as was stated earlier, regulate the underlying technology itself. Madam Speaker, this distinction is important in that it preserves the jurisdiction of the regulator, the Securities Exchange Commission of the Bahamas. And we're grateful to all of the members of the public service who have done an incredible job in shepherding this work under the Free National Movement and now under the Progressive Liberal Party. The Bahamas Financial Services Board declared at the time that the DARE Act put in place the legal framework for a vital, well-regulated, and compliant industry in the Bahamas for those interested in entering the digital asset space, and created specific opportunities for entrepreneurial fintech firms to enjoy the credibility of being licensed and functioning under a comprehensive regulatory regime, and participate in the fintech industry that is being forged by this DARES Act. Madam Speaker, the government today brings to us a set of amendments to this landmark legislation brought under the Free National Movement. And these amendments aimed at providing for the monitoring and sanction of persons carrying on or purporting to carry on digital asset business activities without the requisite registration. The Securities Commission of the Bahamas noted that the proposed amendments are premised on international developments, particularly the revived FATF Recommendations 15 deficiencies, as requiring an expansion of the Commission's regulatory, enforcement, and cooperative powers to apply to the digital asset space. Madam Speaker, permit me to go back just a little bit. I think we would recall that in October of 2018, the FATF changes to its recommendations, they sought then to explicitly clarify that they apply to those financial activities involving virtual assets. And I believe the member for Centerville delved into that with greater detail. So just permit me just to restate at least one aspect of what he said. FATF also added two new definitions to the glossary. One was virtual asset and virtual asset service provider. The amended FATF Recommendation 15 requires that the virtual asset service providers be regulated for anti-money laundering and countering the financing of terrorism purposes, and that they be licensed or registered and subject to effective systems for monitoring and supervision. So, Madam Speaker, we are definitely moving in the right direction on this, in this sector. Madam Speaker, the proposed amendments to DARE establish a regulatory framework for the monitoring of unregulated persons engaged in the digital asset business and extends the Commission's sanctioned powers as it relates to registrants under DARE. The amendment principally, one, it introduces an obligation on behalf of the Commission to monitor unregistered persons carrying on, involved, or purporting to carry on or be involved in the digital asset business. Secondly, strengthens the Commission's enforcement power as it relates to virtual asset service providers, including freezing powers and the compelling of information and evidence. Just to stick a pin, the member for Cat Island, Rumkey, and San Salvador has joined us. And, the second portion, West End and Bimini, of the amendment gives you compelling powers. So one would think when you laid the food program bill, the report rather, that the Prime Minister would have actually mentioned, here are the steps we are now taking to get this information from those persons who refuse to turn over information to the government. I'm advised the government has a tremendous amount of power. The Minister of Finance has a tremendous amount of power. The Auditor General has a tremendous amount of power. But I digress. The third, sorry? Really? I think, moral suasion may help. And the third amendment gives the Commission the authority to compel the production of information and evidence. The proposed amendments would apply to any person carrying on, involved or purporting to carry on, to be involved in the digital asset business pursuant to the Digital Assets and Registered Exchange Act. As I mentioned earlier, my colleagues are going to delve deeper into the work we did over the years, including opening an office in Brussels, which we are hopeful that the government is going to continue to utilize to assist us in doing our work. I will stop, since we have a short time left, I'll stop only by referencing a point raised often by Fort Charlotte. Madam Speaker, the problem we are going to run, the problem we are going to run into, and we want to let the government know in advance that we will stand with you in this regard. The problem we are likely to run into is that obviously the European parliamentarians are now quite worried about what we are doing here. But to date, the European Commission does not share their view that this is a sector that will naturally be utilized by persons who are not committed to following the law. So there are those, I believe, in Europe who are already looking at our jurisdiction and ways in which they can clamp down on this opportunity that the Bahamas have. And I know that there are sufficient nationalists over there, particularly in the member for Fort Charlotte, who will be prepared to stand up and say to
Good morning. The chair recognizes the honorable member for Marco City.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy. Before taking my seat, I was making the point that our jurisdiction has been, unfortunately, unfairly dealt with by the OECD, by some of the parliaments in Europe, and we believe the same thing that we face with other financial services, we are likely to face with cryptocurrency and digital assets. They are already in their parliaments, again, in a sense, targeting and focusing in on us. They had concerns about the sand dollar when we introduced it. And of course, we answered those criticisms satisfactorily so that they can know that this is about serious business. It is not an attempt to facilitate anything untoward in our jurisdiction. And there are ways of mitigating against the system being misused. And in the same way, we have to fight that same fight with digital assets, because we know that the parliaments are looking out for their interests and not our interests. We intend to stand with the government to the extent that you're prepared to continue to fight others from ensuring that their jurisdictions succeed. They get to set standards, but when we pursue innovative things that put us as leaders in the global community, that we do not permit them to shut down any new opportunities for us to succeed. So having said that, I would say, on behalf of the opposition, and certainly on behalf of the people of Marco City, that we support the amendment of the Digital Asset and Registered Exchange Bill 2022. Mr. Deputy.
Thank you, honorable member. As many, the chair recognizes the honorable member for Cat Island, Rumkey, and San Salvador.
Thank you. Mr. Deputy Speaker, it's curious that the member of Marco City could pretend that the Bahamian public is a potential jury pool.
That's what you said.
When did I say that? When did I say that the public is a potential jury pool? When did
The
I
chair
do that?
recognizes the honorable member for Marco City.
The member for Kent Island was absolutely clear in his statements when he laid the report and during the midterm budget report. What you clearly indicated is that on this side, under the last F&M administration, that persons were seeking to enrich themselves, that this was a serial extraction of resources. In any jurisdiction, that is a reference to illegal activity, and legal activity, whenever it goes in a court, it faces a jury pool. That is very straightforward. Very straightforward. You can't sanitize that. You can't change that. You suggested malfeasance, illegal activity. Illegal activity then faces a jury. That's very straightforward.
You made your point.
Okay, thank you.
You made your point. Right? You know something I don't know. You know something I don't know.
Members.
Mr. Speaker, that's right. The member clearly knows something that I don't know. I said that he stood up on a point of order to say that I specifically said. Now, if he's saying that that's what he deduced from what I said, that's a different thing.
Yeah, that's his logic.
That's his logic that he drew from what I may have said. He also alluded to the fact that I have a lot of powers. One thing about me, I'm not going to abuse my powers.
They know about that.
I don't intend to do it. Right? And yes, whatever what I've said, I noticed the member said I'm sparing MGOs, I'm sparing the F&M. Again, that's a view that he has deduced, perhaps, from what I would have said. But maybe if he would have read the audit report that was laid, then he could see whether what I would have said detracts from anything that what was put in the report. I'm saying that there's been nothing, there have not been cooperation. And at the end of the day, I don't have the power to compel anyone to cooperate with me. But yes, there are mechanisms through which people are compelled to cooperate. And those are being considered. You don't need to tell me, I don't need to tell you when I will do it. But unlike others, I understand the Westminster system, I understand conventions, and you will be informed at the appropriate time of the steps that will be taken in relation to anyone and anything that may impact you and the country. And I've been doing that and will continue to do it. Madam Speaker, our administration, through the announcement of the government's white paper on digital assets, is every indication that we are making innovative efforts to diversify our economy. The digital asset industry has developed rapidly in a few short years into an industry with a $3 trillion market cap, opening up the potential for enormous opportunities for our jurisdiction. Madam Speaker, the government is confident that the Bahamas can effectively leverage and capitalize on our decades of expertise and successes in financial services to position the Bahamas as a significant digital assets hub. We recognized the importance of establishing the framework that would allow us not only to participate, but also to lead in this innovative industry. Madam Speaker, while this industry represents a space for new growth for the Bahamian economy, it is equally vital for our jurisdiction to be agile with any new industry, especially quickly transforming ones. The government of the Bahamas today reiterates the importance of protecting our reputation and consumers. In our approach to advancing public policy, our administration knows that getting our policies and regulations right matters considerably to building the infrastructure that positions our country for success and protects the jurisdiction. The amendments to the DARE Act are necessary to strengthen the anti-money laundering framework for digital assets to support the Bahamas re-rating application to seek a compliant rating for FATF Recommendation 15. These amendments align with our commitment in the white paper to be compliant with international best practices and requirements. As Minister of Finance, I've made it extremely clear that government's policies are designed to facilitate and encourage growth while ensuring we keep bad actors out of the jurisdiction. Additionally, as we continue to make policies advance in the digital assets industry, we are focused primarily on making sure that this industry succeeds in the Bahamas, awarding opportunities for Bahamians to play their role as consumers and investors. Madam Speaker, our decades of previous success in the financial industry have allowed our people to develop unique expertise as leading professionals in international financial services. As a result, the Bahamas has an extensive capacity of human capital positioned to assist all in the Fintech space who look to do business in the Bahamas. In our policy white paper, you will also note the commitment of my government to provide the highest in tertiary education to Bahamians who want to be in the digital asset space. The Bahamas and Bahamians across our archipelago are ready and willing to partner with this new industry to do business in the Bahamas so that our people can professionally experience the economic growth. The government, Madam Speaker, is pressed to ensure that the Bahamas is not on the outside of this revolution looking in. I'm confident that our country can make significant contributions to this industry. I'm also optimistic that we can become a digital assets hub and leader in the international financial technology solutions industry. Our administration will continue to consult extensively with regulators and financial and legal experts as we double down on our efforts to position ourselves to become a leader. We believe that opportunities abound in our Bahamas and that the best years in the life of our country are still ahead of us as we leverage exciting new industries. Madam Speaker, while we recognize the extraordinary opportunities digital assets offer, we also recognize the risks, thus emphasizing the importance of effective regulation. We will attract the best companies and keep out bad actors. In addition, digital assets companies associated with our jurisdiction must operate fairly and in the interests of customers. We must ensure that customers' money and assets are safely and adequately safeguarded, and that measures are in place to detect and prevent financial crime. In doing so, at the same time, the Bahamas will be meeting its international obligations, upholding our reputation, and mitigating the inevitable risks associated with the introduction of new technologies. Madam Speaker, we recently established a digital advisory panel to keep digital assets development, emerging trends, and associated risk constantly under review. The panel will be and is charged with keeping the government, the Digital Asset Policy Committee, and appropriate regulators fully updated with relevant information. They will be expected to recommend any necessary changes to policy, the DARE Act, and other legislation to ensure that the Bahamas maintains its place as a well-regulated digital asset jurisdiction, while at the same time continuing to remain relevant and attractive for digital asset businesses to operate from, to grow, and to prosper. Madam Speaker, while much of today's focus is on regulating and protecting the Bahamas as a jurisdiction, developing the skills and expertise necessary to fill jobs created in the Bahamian digital assets sector is of enormous importance to me. As indicated before, we propose to expand the range of sector-specific, academic, professional, and vocational opportunities in education. This is vital to ensure that Bahamians are well-placed and best placed to secure positions in this exciting new industry. In addition, we will promote the closest collaboration between the University of the Bahamas, the private sector, and the regulators to develop crypto asset courses for both certificates and degree level. Again, I trust the whole House and the Bahamian people will share my sincere desire that the broadest possible number of Bahamians benefit from this opportunity. Madam Speaker, these are exciting times for our country. Even though we are at the very early stages of our journey in digital assets as a country, and like with anything new, we will likely contend with obstacles and uncertainties in this field. However, the government remains optimistic that we are positioning the Bahamas to participate and lead in these rapidly changing emerging industries. What the government is proposing in the digital asset space is genuinely innovative. We are determined to set the Bahamas on a path that truly delivers on that brighter future for all, fully fit for the 21st century and beyond. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Asmini, the Chair recognizes the Honourable Member for East Grand Bahama.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, let me first also offer my sincere condolences to you and to your family. Madam Speaker, I am once again grateful to have the opportunity to speak on behalf of the wonderful, good people of the East Grand Bahama constituency. That goes all the way from Sweetings Key, McLeanstown, and all the way down to Coral Gardens, Malibu Reef, and all of the areas in between. Madam Speaker, before I get into the Digital Assets Registration Exchange Amendment Bill, I want to recognize the member for Tall Pines, who we recently held a town meeting in Sweetings Key. And one of the major issues that the residents of Sweetings Key are facing is the reopening of the clinic in Sweetings Key. The clinic is basically completed in terms of the renovations. However, due to the shortage of staff and the need to completely put all of the items in the clinic has not yet been open. Also, there is a need for the residents to have regular visits from the doctor and the nurse. We had recently 2 or 3 medical emergencies in Sweetings Key. And Madam Speaker, for those who may not be aware of, in terms of the logistics of Sweetings Key, Sweetings Key is about a 15-minute boat ride from McLeanstown to Sweetings Key. And if you're looking for a ride from McLeanstown is probably about 45 minutes to an hour from Freeport to McLeanstown. So if you are in Freeport, and if the hospital is in Freeport, that's an hour drive, 45 to an hour drive to McLeanstown, and then you have to get on a boat from McLeanstown to Sweetings Key. And so there is a challenge if there is a medical emergency in Sweetings Key. Thankfully, the last medical emergencies that have happened have not resulted in anyone passing. Madam Speaker, we sent a letter to the minister responsible for health, and he has communicated with me. He has also put us in touch with the medical professionals, and the medical professionals have indicated that they are seeking as soon as possible to staff the clinic and to restart the visits for the doctor and for the nurse. We are appreciative in the response, but we still continue to press that it has not started yet, and that we want to keep this to the forefront of everyone's attention, because God forbid something happens and there is a medical emergency and unfortunately someone passes. But I do have to accept that we sent the letter to the minister, and the minister immediately called me and immediately put us in touch with the medical professionals.
The chair recognizes the honourable member for Tall Pines.
Member for East Grand Bahama. Madam Speaker, we are fully aware of the challenges that exist in East Grand Bahama, but more specifically in Sweetings Key. The Public Hospitals Authority, along with the Ministry of Health, have been addressing many of the logistical challenges, not only in Grand Bahama, but throughout our archipelago. And I spoke specifically to the member and explained exactly the challenges we currently face. Yes, the facility is near completion, and there was a challenge to find residents for the medical staff on Sweetings Key. This was brought to the attention of the representatives of the PHA, who was working very diligently to try to resolve that issue. But I could assure him and the residents of Sweetings Key that this administration is very serious about providing the essential services, particularly in outlying settlements. And through an IDB loan facility, we are moving diligently to resolve many of the challenges that exist not only in Grand Bahama, but in some of our far southern islands. The people of Sweetens Key is very important to this government, like everyone else in New Providence and Grand Bahama properly, and Freeport properly. And we would do all in our power to ensure that this services is fixed and up and running in the shortest time possible. The nurse is on standby. We are now presently having services in the Key, but we need to do more. But the logistics and the challenges that faced us as a result of the impacts of Hurricane Dorian has left the clinic operational to this point, but residents. And you cannot put healthcare professionals on a Key and they have no place to live. We don't intend to do that, but we're working diligently to solve it. So you can rest assured, as I called you, sir, that I will do all in my power to ensure that those residents have access to the quality of healthcare services they truly deserve.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and thank you very much, Member for Tall Pines. There was, in addition to the residents of Sweetens Key, and there are a number of other challenges that the residents in Sweetens Key have, and I will raise them with the relevant ministers. But there's one in particular that affects Sweetens Key, but also affects McLeanstown and the settlements that are in the east. And that is the police station in McLeanstown. The member for Freetown, the administration building that is housed in McLeanstown used to house a police station. And that police station served the communities of McLeanstown, but it also served the communities of Sweetens Key, and it is really the outside of High Rock, which used to house the police station. That really is the only police station that is completed now that has to serve all of the residents in the eastern settlements. I'm advised that we completed the administration building, so the building itself is completed. But I'm advised that the police are awaiting furnitures to come in order for them to actually move into the building. This, unfortunately, has been going on for a number of months that they've been waiting on these furnitures. I've spoken to Mr. Cunningham, who was in charge of the police in Grand Bahama, and he too, I believe, is frustrated in terms of ensuring that this furniture arrives so that there can be a presence. I would ask for your assistance, sir, in facilitating and in ensuring that this furniture happens. Again, the residents in Sweetens Key have raised this as an additional issue because that is the police station that was the jump-off point for them. And so imagine if McLeanstown doesn't have one, then Sweetens Key, worse off, won't have one. And so we would ask for your assistance in urgently assisting with that matter. As well as the member for Fort Charlotte, you and I took a visit to Waterkey, a very effective visit, and I appreciate you inviting me to join you to your visit to Waterkey and the other rest of the settlements. The dock in Waterkey, and you jumped off the boat just like I jumped off the boat to get on land. And that still, and again, we want to continue to ensure that we agitate and remind the government, because we have to speak on behalf of the people who can't speak in this place and can't speak for themselves. So we just want to keep that to your forefront, and that we are continuing to await the assistance with the dock.
Thank you. The chair recognizes the honourable member for Fort Charlotte.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. The dock in what is key would have just this week been a subject with myself, the director, the deputy director of works in terms of the scope of works, which I inquired about. And as soon as those scopes are completed, I understand a team is scheduled to pay another visit. But as soon as those scopes are prepared and quantified, we will be moving forward.
That, member, is very good news, and we are looking forward to that happening. I'm sure the member for Central Grand Bahama, whose family is from Waterkey, while this does not concern members here, we also are agitating the Grand Bahama Power Company to ensure that they complete the work on Waterkey, because if there's no power in Waterkey, and there are residents who are willing to come back and live there, if there's no power that's there, then there's no water. And obviously people won't be able to survive. Even if they have a generator, they won't be able to survive without having the water that's there. So we're continuing to agitate for them. Absolutely. Madam Speaker, we will support, as was stated by our leader, that we will support the Digital Assets Registration Exchange Amendment Bill. I'm advised that the amendments will make us fully compliant with the FATF recommendations. And this really is about our reputation, our international reputation. Therefore, it is important not to do anything that will threaten this industry. And while we believe, like the Securities Commission, which we are advised, that there are existing protections in the Act, we have no difficulties with agreeing to the amendments as they are based on recommendations from the FATF. But I wish to speak to a broader point in reference to the Digital Assets and Amendment Bill. We are at a defining moment for the fintech industry in the Bahamas. We in the FNM have put in the work, we've done the heavy lifting, and we've laid the foundation for a tremendous future in this industry. The FNM fully recognizes the potential of this industry and the potential of the overall technology industry. All the way back in 2018, I gave a speech in London at the Commonwealth Summit, and it was carried by an international news outlet, BN Americas. And their headline was, Bahamas Fintech Push. Their article says, with fintech still in the budding industry in the Caribbean, the Bahamas is pushing for expansion of tech development in the island nation and fintech in particular. The world is moving in that direction. The world is inviting companies to come who are indeed focused on fintech. They quoted me in the speech that I gave at the Commonwealth Summit. That then resulted in us, in June of 2018, the FNM government hosted in Grand Bahama the first ever Bahamas Blockchain and Cryptocurrency Conference. It was a government event. We needed to show the world and the citizens that we were ready to lead in this digital assets cryptocurrency space. Christina Rowell from the Securities Commission spoke at that time to what regulation could and would look like. So we started talking about regulation back in 2018. This conference saw a large contingent of international companies and local companies that were focused on blockchain and cryptocurrency. Here is what the member for Kalani said at the opening of that event. Our government, and I quote, our government recognizes that in order for the economy to grow, we must diversify and create other opportunities for Bahamians to be successful. He went on and said, I firmly believe in growing a diverse technology industry sector in the Bahamas, where entrepreneurs can start and grow new technology companies. We must also, and here's the important part, we must also welcome existing global technology players to move their operations to the Bahamas, which will have a meaningful effect on our economy and which can be achieved in a relatively short period of time. So back in 2018, when we had the international conference, the Bahamas Blockchain and Cryptocurrency Conference, we spoke of a vision to regulate this industry, to be one of the first to regulate this industry, and by regulating the industry, attracting these major international players, which we are seeing fruits of that today. A working group was formed and consulted with the Securities Commission and the Central Bank. The Digital Assets, or the DARE Act of 2020, was a landmark piece of legislation that was ahead of its time and has paid and will continue to pay dividends for the Bahamas. When the FNM passed the DARE Act in 2020, the Securities Commission Chief, Ms. Christina Roll, said this back in 2020. She said the passage of the Digital Assets and Registered Exchange Bill 2020, the DARE Act, has put in place the legal framework for a vital, well-regulated, and compliant industry in the Bahamas for those interested in entering the digital asset space. So we moved from laying out the policy and the vision in 2018 to putting in place the working group to establish the regulation, the Securities Commission doing their benchmarks, looking at Malta, looking at Hong Kong, looking at the US, and how to put in place the best practices for regulating this industry. We then moved to 2021, where the FTX company in 2021 applied under the DARE Act and ultimately made their announcement in September of 2021. Here is what Sam Bankman-Fried, who is the CEO of FTX, said. In addressing the groundbreaking of the company's West Bay Street headquarters, noted that after undertaking an extensive search, the Bahamas ultimately proved to be the top-ranking jurisdiction in all the metrics the company was looking for to put down its roots. He went on to say, the search came down to roughly 7 jurisdictions that had not been crossed off their list. He noted that the Bahamas regulatory framework, the Digital Assets Registered Exchanges legislation, also known as the DARE Act, was key in attracting the company to the Bahamas. So, Madam Speaker, we have to support this. We have to support the continuation of this initiative. It was our initiative. The vision was laid out in 2018, where we went to the world and said to the world that we want to be a player in this space. It was then put together by the Securities Commission. The regulatory regime was put together by the Securities Commission in 2020. And then we didn't see the fruits of the regulation in 2021, where we have the second largest digital exchange company in the world who decided that as a result of your regulatory framework, we will set up base in the Bahamas. I am also advised that there are a number of other major players on the level of FTX who are in the process of applying through the Securities Commission to do a similar thing, to have their headquarters set up here in the Bahamas. So, Madam Speaker, again, we have to support this. We are therefore pleased to see the fruits of the Free National Movement have resulted in FTX moving to the Bahamas, and we are pleased to see the other wonderful results. My only, and I say this selfishly, my only regret is that we were unable to get FTX to set up shop in Freeport or set up shop in Grand Bahama, as opposed to doing it in the Providence. But maybe next time, when the other companies come, member for West Grand Bahama, that you can influence them to come to Grand Bahama and set up shop in Grand Bahama. It is also good to see the government continuing the vision of the Free National Movement. Companies like FTX are game changers for the Bahamas. In fact, we saw in the, just in the paper today, just in the paper this morning, in the business section this morning, where it says investment companies like FTX's arrival to establishment of Atlantis. In essence, FTX is to the Bahamian fintech industry and Bahamian technology industry what Atlantis is for tourism. And we know what Atlantis means for tourism in the Bahamas. And FTX's arrival here in the Bahamas is like what Atlantis is for tourism. But what next, Madam Speaker? We cannot just sit back and let things happen, but we must make them happen. So what next? The government has passed its white paper, which is a start, but here are some thoughts on the way forward. The industry has the potential to impact Bahamians at every level. This cannot be just limited to just finance, and we've heard what the Prime Minister said, but it cannot just be limited to finance people, accountants, and lawyers. This is a moment of empowerment, and it is a moment of potentially empowerment. We must be intentional about empowering Bahamians to take advantage of the opportunities. Prime Minister spoke to education. We must educate our people. We need developers, we need coders, we need miners, blockchain miners. We need people who can understand and create and manage crypto and crypto exchanges. I had a chat with the vice president, or one of the vice presidents of Cisco, and he said that the Bahamas is an ideal location for you to be a software development hub, for you to be a place that has software developers and exports your expertise to the US while still living in the Bahamas. You could be what India is to the US. You could have a part to play when it comes to software development. We also recognize this. So when we were in government, we started the ICT BTVI high school program. This was a program that was designed to start high school students in the ICT fields. I'm advised that to date, since we started this program, there have been 450 students who have completed their CompTIA IT fundamentals certifications, because these are certifications, these aren't just courses. I'm also advised that there are 300 students, and these are high school students, 300 high school students who have completed their CompTIA certifications. That there are 300 students who are returning into the program, and there are 150 who have already graduated from the program. We started it, I believe, in 2018. I believe we started in 2018, and it was a delay during the pandemic and Dorian, but we started it. It was started during the summer, and it was actually designed to be a complement to the summer job program. So we took students who were part of the summer job program from 9th to 12th grade, and we trained them at BTBI during the summer. And they were able then to get their certifications. So that by the time they graduated, and I attended the first graduation, by the time they graduated, they would have had 1 year's of college credits at BTBI. So if you were doing a 2-year degree, you would only have to do 1 more year to complete your 2-year degree. But this was the kind of initiative that we need to build off of. This is just one aspect. That's 400 or so students. We need 10,000 developers. We need 10,000 coders. If we are really going to make an impact in this industry. When we were in London during the Commonwealth Summit, the IT minister said that they are doing coding from grade 1 in England. Grade 1, they are being introduced to coding. So if we're really going to make a push for this industry, these are the kinds of things that we need to be building on and pushing. We have a hotel training college that we have people coming from all over the world coming to that college. We need to be the center when it comes to IT for the Caribbean. Because if we are going to really make a push and a stab at this industry, education is where we need to go. Infrastructure is also where we need to go. One of the recommendations coming out of the working group was for these type companies like FTX and these other major companies, rather than them coming and setting up their own infrastructure, we need to have the infrastructure here to attract them. So we need to maybe think about having 5G zones to where these companies can come into a 5G zone and they can thrive in the 5G zone. In Grand Bahama, I like the way that you think West Grand Bahama.
More groundbreaking, right?
One additional suggestion that was made by the working group, which I agree with, is as it relates to exchange control. The central bank should liberalize exchange control for virtual currency businesses so that they are able to transact freely, virtually. Further, there should be a clear policy exemption for exchange controls for Bahamians who are buying tokens and coins on the exchange and settling in Bahamian dollars. Right now, it is extremely difficult and cumbersome, and you have a limitation when it comes to exchanging and trading in cryptocurrency. But we need to liberalize exchange control when it comes to those companies that want to come in, but also when it comes to Bahamians exercising inside these areas as well. This will provide for more financial inclusion and for more exposure. There are also two other issues, Madam Speaker, that I believe was raised by the leader, and I believe it was spoken by one of the members on the other side. The central bank sand dollar has the potential to do a number of things. Estonia is known as the world leader in e-government. People come from all over the world to study e-government in Estonia because they were one of the first who claimed this to be their own. The government must continue to push to make the sand dollar platform must continue to push the sand dollar as a payment platform for all government services. We must think out of the box when it comes to payment of government services. So if we can pay our driver's license bill, we can pay our service charges, we could pay our any bill that we have to pay to the government, if we can pay that in sand dollar, that increases the usage of it, and it also increases the convenience of paying. We started the process by introducing it as a payment platform, but it needs to be expanded. We must also take a proactive role in exposing the public to the sand dollar. Not a lot of Bahamians use the sand dollar. And so we must be proactive in ensuring that we push this initiative. We drive this initiative and allow the public now to be more knowledgeable, and for the public to be to use this, and maybe it more convenient for the public to use it. This is especially the case for the family islands, which can help to solve the lack of banks in the family islands. After Hurricane Dorian, and Abaco was devastated and the banks were completely closed, you had a situation where persons had to take private flights of loads and loads of cash over to Abaco. Banks are closing in all family islands in Andros, Eleuthera. They're closing in these family islands. If we had a more user-friendly sand dollar system, where more persons use the sand dollar, then that would alleviate the need to have banks, because you would then be transacting digitally. So you wouldn't need cash. You wouldn't need to go to the bank to deposit your money, but you can transact by the use of your phone. So I could pay my bills. I could go to the food store. I can transact with persons. Once you have a sand dollar account, I have a sand dollar account. That can then solve our banking issues in the family islands. We also should think about a pilot program where the government pays a portion of civil servant salary, and obviously the civil servants has to agree, but to pay a portion of a civil servant's salary in sand dollar, so that again, it increases the usage of the sand dollar. And we should also be providing incentive for businesses and for people to sign up for the sand dollar. We had allocated a certain amount of funding in the Ministry of Finance budget for initiatives and incentives for the sand dollar. And we are urging this government to continue working with the central bank to increase the usage of the sand dollar. It can solve a lot of our issues and banking issues in the family islands. The answer is not to build more brick and mortar banks. The answer is to do more digital banking and use digital currency when it comes to that. So, Madam Speaker, thank you very much. We support the amendments to this bill.
Thank you, Honourable Member. As many, the Chair recognizes the Honourable Member for Central Grand Bahama.
Oh, y'all don't have anyone else?
Madam Speaker, colleagues, good afternoon. I want to say thank you to the government leader for West Grand Bahama for accommodating me and allowing me to take the podium at this time. Madam Speaker, I stand once again on behalf of the great people of Central Grand Bahama, whose voices I proudly represent. I am eternally grateful for this continued opportunity to come into this honored house with their best interests in the forefront. Let me once again thank all of those who supported our Central Grand Bahama Market Festival on Saturday. It was a tremendous success. And also on Sunday, our post-Mother's Day concert at the world-famous Royal Oasis just outside of the Commonwealth Room, where we honored the 14 oldest mother in each polling division. There are 14 polling divisions in Central Grand Bahama, and we honored the 14th oldest mother. So they were there with their families, and a wonderful time was had by all who attended. Madam Speaker, the people of Grand Bahama have been through so much over the past few years. They are ready for a breakthrough, and I hope that breakthrough comes sooner rather than later. I'll speak to the Grand Lucayan Seal, Madam Speaker. Before I get to the substantial debate on the DARE Amendment Bill, I want to acknowledge that this New Day government has recently announced that it has accepted an offer from Electro America Hospitality Group to purchase the Grand Lucayan Resort for $100 million. We hear it will be an ambitious property with a luxury lifestyle hotel, an upscale convention hotel, and a family resort, offering thousands of jobs during the reconstruction and opening phases. The people of Central Grand Bahama and the island at large are hopeful that this venture is successful, because if the government is successful, Freeport is successful, and everybody wins. No, everybody is successful. As you all will hear me point out almost every time I come into this honored house, governments are continuous. I can't give enough yard. The former administration made a difficult and prudent decision, and we criticize, to purchase the Grand Lucayan property in order to save the dozens of jobs tied to the resort and ultimately preserve the integrity of the assets. Madam Speaker, had we not purchased this hotel when we did, it would have fallen into disrepair and perhaps would have wasted away like the Royal Oasis and Princess Hotel. Can you imagine the Grand Lucayan being only a distant memory of the good old days like we regard the International Bazaar property? The property, in no doubt, would have depreciated tremendously. Now we bought the resort for $65 million and it's being sold for $100 million. That's a $35 million difference in recovery. So kudos to the government of the Bahamas. We await to see how this move, that's my story and I'm sticking to it. We await to see how this move will pan out for the Bahamian people, and hope that this, along with other projects, such as the Carnival Cruise Port, that was also pushed and started under the previous administration, will breathe life back into the beloved second city and the next place I call home. My main place of home is Waterkey. I say I'm on the floor, it's my story and I'm sticking to it. Madam Speaker and colleagues in the Bahamas, we are rapidly approaching hurricane season, and we have to reflect on the issues and the challenges we face with during Dorian. In recent times, we've been discussing climate change in this hallowed parliament. And climate change is real. We are at the forefront of a war that we did not start. You know, as a little boy growing up in Waterkey, I remember when my father and my grandfather and great-grandfather, they were able, and those who grew up on the island around the sea, were able to predict tidal flow by looking at the moon. When the moon is rising, tide is flowing. When the moon is setting, tide is going down. Nowadays, it's difficult. I went to Waterkey the other day, the moon at full height. I thought I had high tide. When I got to my boat, you could scratch match, but the boat was dry. So there's a disconnect right now. So again, and this is being affected by climate change. We must pay attention. Yes, we must pay attention to climate change. One of the things that we did in our last administration, when the former Prime Minister appointed the Ministry of Disaster Preparedness, Management, and Reconstruction. We strengthened NEMA, understanding that NEMA is a critical agency. And prior to September 16th, that fateful day, NEMA's assets were strengthened. And I was hoping that the member for Pinewood would have been here to hear part of what I have to say. It is very important right now that Pinewood do an assessment of the assets that we left in place. Critical assets. We were able to secure 12 Wally Rescue medical boats equipped with 40 horsepower Evinrude engines, safety stretchers, life vests, and trailers to ensure that should the need arise again, we don't have to go to private citizens to borrow their jet skis or whatever. We have Wally boats that we were able to acquire with assistance of the U.S. Embassy, Northern Command in particular, and I must single out Commander Kevin Self, who's now retired, who was very instrumental in us getting those assets. Emergency relief supplies were stored in all of our warehouses, one at Coral Harbor, a second one in Great Inagua, and a third one in Hawksville and Grand Bahama. An assessment needs to be done, considering that we are at this critical stage. Ensure that those engines are serviced, those boats are ready to go in the event that they are needed. Handheld devices were acquired, Motorola handheld device that was a part of our national trunking system to allow for effective communication across the board. Hurricane shelters were secured. Air-conditioned toilet facilities and a commercial office, commercial kitchen were also secured and should be stored at Coral Harbor Base. So it's time for us to ensure that we assess those equipment, those assets, we maintain them in the event that there's an emergency, we could mobilize immediately. We also have a document left in place, a 15-page document, a resilient policy recovery document that I'm sure the minister is now becoming familiar with to deal with. How do we effectively and immediately go into recovery mode, into prevention, into management and recovery mode immediately following a disaster? Everything is in place. So I admonish you, Minister, to ensure that those assets are up and running, because if we remember in 2020, we said, and I talk about a disconnect between the tide and the moon now. In 2020, in April, we had our first hurricane. I remember in cabinet, I asked the then Prime Minister to allow me to leave the room. We had to mobilize a team in Grand Bahama to go to Sweeting Ski to rescue those persons from the island of Sweeting Ski, to bring them on the mainland in April. So now June to November is no longer. We have to be ready at all times to go into those emergency mode. So just a bit of advice, and I'm here for support. Whenever you need, call on me, I'll be happy to lend as much support as I can. Thank you. This week, as we can see, parts of New Providence saw a downpour of rain that completely flooded major thoroughfares and residential areas. This is just a warning for what may be to come in the upcoming hurricane season. I pray to God that a Dorian never hits New Providence, because New Providence, all of our critical assets. So we need to decentralize. We need to have redundancies, not in New Providence, but in other islands, where if one shuts down, we can continue on with our government business. So again, just a bit of advice. I want to urge the Bahamian people that it's never too early to start your hurricane preparation. Ensure that you have the necessary equipment and items now, and your buildings and homes are up to code. Very important. Also seek to remove the debris and possible dangerous projectiles away from your homes by cutting down tall trees and dumping bulky items and derelict vehicles. Although the official start of the Atlantic hurricane does not officially begin until June, like I said earlier, climate change has now proven otherwise. Now, the reason why we're here today, I believe it is to speak to the amendments to the DARE bill. Madam Speaker, I turn my attention to the Digital Assets and Registration Exchange. And as I promised you, West Grand Bahama, I will not be long. 2022 currently up for debate, in which we have no objection, as was stated by the leader, and was stated by East Grand Bahama. We fully support. However, the record must reflect that this is simply again, I know you don't like for me to say this, but it's the truth. Copy and paste move by this New Day government. It is true. The former Free National Movement government, as was stated by East Grand Bahama, initially brought this bill in 2020. We saw the opportunity, you saw the opportunity, took the baton, and running with it. Yeah, I can relate to relays. The bill was introduced to set out the legal framework for new expanded financial technology or Fintech offering and opportunities in the financial services sector. We also sought to provide the necessary support for the regulation of digital asset businesses involved in the issuance of or sale of digital assets. We knew we wanted to provide Bahamians with much needed avenues to new industries and laid the groundwork for sound investor protection standards. Now, we see that this New Day government hosting global cryptocurrency and technical conferences and heralding digital assets as the next best thing for the Bahamas. And because we once again believe in the ability of the Bahamian people to excel at every opportunity provided to them, the official opposition hopes for nothing but success. This amendment, West Grand Mama, this amendment bill is nearly taking the baton to the next leg of the race. And you know, the third leg was my favorite leg. And you're taking the baton and you're running with it. We're here to cheer you on, telling you to run like hell. By amending the act, this will allow for a much needed wall of security as we seek to expand the digital offering and business in the Bahamas and ensure that the proper safeguards are in place to protect the industry. This bill will provide for the Commission to implement systems to identify any person who is not registered under the Act and who is carrying on, involved in, or purporting to carry on or be involved in digital assets business. We know, Madam Speaker, how important it is to ensure our global standing of financial reporting and protection meets and surpasses international best practices. Like our leaders say, they're going to be coming after us, so we want to make sure that we're above board. Every T's are crossed, every I is dotted. The administration made it a priority to keep the Bahamas in good standing with international financial regulators. Madam Speaker, this additional piece of legislation sets to guide the critical steps in the country's move to capitalize on the global digital market. I cannot underscore it enough, Madam Speaker. This administration continues to enjoy the spoils of the arduous work of the previous administration. And I think someone said it earlier, referred to Mr. Prime Minister Hubert Ingram, some sow and some reap. But government is continuous. But we understand and acknowledge that governments are continuous and we want them to succeed. Because if they win, I get it right this time, we all win. We just want to ensure that it is done with transparency and accountability. As always, as I admonished the member for Pinewood, the official opposition is here to provide bipartisan support for this New Day government. I'm continually honored and grateful for this responsibility to be a representative for the people of Central Grand Bahama and will continue to do my part to advance our country forward, upward, onwards together. And before I take my seat, let me once again thank the member for East Grand Bahama, along with the member for Port Charlotte, for advocating on behalf of my family in Waterkey to ensure that we get the dock and to ensure
12 solid votes.
and growing.
I won it by a landslide.
He won it by 11?
12 to 7.
Landslide. But we certainly appreciate it. And as this government continues to win, I certainly would love to be a part of that groundbreaking ceremony. So once again, I look forward to the Ministry of Works coming to Grand Bahama and we do the groundbreaking ceremony for the dock, as well as turning on the power once again. So once again, Madam Speaker, and to the member for West Grand Bahama, I promise to be brief. And with that, Central Grand Bahama, along with my colleagues, supports this bill. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The Chair recognizes the Honourable Member for Pinewood.
Madam Speaker, if I may, in response to the Honourable Member for Central Grand Bahama, May is Disaster Preparedness Month. We started the month with a church service at his church that he knows very well, Zion Baptist. The next day, the NEMA had a conference at NEMA's office in which myself, the Permanent Secretary, the Director of the Meteorological Department, Social Services, gave the country the position of our disaster preparedness. Along with that, I met personally with the two representatives from the Pacific Disaster Preparedness and also the National Guard of Rhode Island. We were provided with information and updates of the hurricane season and also the pledge of the US government and their willingness to assist in the event of a hurricane disaster. Apart from that, Madam Speaker, the Captain Stephen Russell, who would be the director of NEMA, provided an update of the preparedness of NEMA for the upcoming hurricane season. He briefed not only myself and the Disaster Reconstruction Authority, but also the Prime Minister on the state of the Bahamas preparedness. Along with Captain Russell, the advisory committee to the Prime Minister on disaster preparedness have met with myself and a report as to the state of disaster preparedness. With specifics to Grand Bahama, we had two representatives from the Disaster Reconstruction Authority in Grand Bahama yesterday, inspecting our warehouses there and also inspecting a new, bigger warehouse with regards to the inventory of blankets, searchlights, generators, all of those things are going on right now to test our preparedness in the event of any peril or hurricane. I hope that the member from Central Grand Bahama and Madam Speaker, moving forward, I have no problems at all as we move throughout this month and during this hurricane season to apprise members of the opposition who would like to sit in on these meetings so they could be assured of the position of disaster preparedness. All I would need is my classmate to reach out to me or my client who sits next to him and who wants to be apprised of what's going on with the state of disaster preparedness in the country. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Asmini. The Chair recognizes the Honourable Member for Freetown. The Chair recognizes the Honourable Member for West Grand Bahama.
The member for Freetown will be the next speaker on this bill. But Madam Speaker, I move now for the suspension for lunch to return at 3 o'clock this afternoon.
Is there a seconder? Thank you, honourable members. It has been moved and seconded that the business of this House be suspended until 3 p.m. As many are in favor will remain seated. Those opposed will stand. The motion is agreed. The business of this House stands suspended until 3 p.m.
All rise.